Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great.
So you are,
I'm Shoshana Fishaw.
and you have your own company.
I do. It's called SF Story Co.
Okay, and it's a storytelling company.
Yeah, for
Okay.
brand strategy, I really think that the way to best tell a brand strategy is through telling a story that's authentic to kind of who they are and what makes them interesting.
Okay, so a brand strategy storytelling company for mostly fashion companies.
Yes,
Right?
bulk of fashion companies. I'm trying to branch out into a few other things.
Okay, so you have jewelry, fashion.
I have jewelry, luxury eyewear, handbags, and then I also work with a hair salon at University of Michigan, and then I'm working with two cause-related platforms.
Okay, cause as in.
C-A-U-S-E, not cause as in C-O-S.
Give us an example.
I'm an advisor with Project Just, and what they do is they're kind of bringing transparency into fashion. So they're trying to help you know the story behind where your clothes come from. So as opposed to, especially with everything that happened with the climate and the factory collapsing in Bangladesh, it's kind of almost a Wikipedia for kind of fashion production. So it tells you who made your clothes, what the materials are, so that you can kind of start to have a little bit more information and kind of have more power with your purchases.
And this is more like, this is a nonprofit?
It's super new. It's not technically a nonprofit, but really the point of the business itself is to kind of change the way people shop in fashion. They're going to also create kind of a seal called Just Approved, so that hope that eventually one day people will know kind of when they shop or they buy a t-shirt or they buy a pair of jeans, that what they're buying kind of comes from positivity, whether it's, people are being treated the way they should be treated, the environment's being treated the way they were treated. So technically it's not a nonprofit, but the whole point of it is to kind of better the world.
So give us an example of what it means to be a brand strategist and how you help a company create that story of who they are.
Well, I think the first thing is obviously the market, no matter what industry, and especially fashion, there's so many companies popping up. First, the most important thing is helping somebody figure out kind of why they're doing what they're doing, because their why is not, I should say, why they started the company or why they're doing what they're doing, not what they're doing, is kind of what's going to make them unique. So for instance, a handbag company I worked with, her why was she wanted to kind of merge the ideas of kind of art and function. Mm-hmm. So she wanted to use handbags as kind of a canvas for art forms, using printed leather, using embellishments. So by knowing that why, we were able to develop a content and business strategy to kind of fit what her brand DNA was, so that all the content kind of had an art feel, like it would come from a decor magazine, or kind of the strategy would be collaborations with artists, working with different prints, things like that. So it really helps define a brand and kind of define its messaging, define its kind of business direction.
And where does that messaging go? Like on their website, or does it go?
It really goes everywhere. It's everything from organizational infrastructure, how a company is built and how it's run, to kind of its actual content on the site, its words, its imagery, but also a brand strategy and how a brand tells the story. It filters through to business development and how in e-commerce, because even if you think about your favorite e-commerce store to buy clothes, whether it's Net-a-Porter, ASOS, Nasty Gal, each one, the shopping experience is a little different because it's for a different girl. It's taking you through a different shopping experience, so that's telling a story as well.
Okay, so where did you get your necklace and your beautiful leopard shirt?
My leopard shirt is old. It's from the. I had to remember which. It was a Target collaboration. It was 3.1 Philip Lim for Target. Let's see, I'm wearing two chokers. The top one is a client of mine currently, Jumi Lim. I love her. She's a current Korean jewelry designer. And then the bottom one is from Balabar, where initially I was an accessories editor, but then I helped build BaubleBar, which was a e-commerce jewelry brand.
Oh, so I didn't know it was two separate necklaces.
Yeah.
I thought it was one.
Layering.
That's
I love the
awesome.
layer.
I love that.
As you can see, prints, textures, layer, it's kind of my favorite thing.
Okay, so tell us your history. Like, where did you start working?
Well, I went to Michigan. I grew up in Michigan, and I went to Michigan State. My first job out of college was at Women's Wear Daily. I was an accessories market editor.
Remind me what you studied at Michigan. Because it was not fashion, right?
Yeah, no. At Michigan State, I actually started out in Lyman Bridge, which was a math and science residential college. So actually, it was to the point where I took Calc 1 and 2 together my first semester of college. Then I switched to marketing, and I worked kind of in the music industry in Detroit for most of my college years. And then it wasn't until the end that kind of I even realized fashion could be a career. So towards the end, I was lucky enough to be able to get a few internships, and then I graduated with communications and a communications degree with a PR specialization, and I had taken journalism classes as well.
Okay, so your major was in communications at the end.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how did you go from music industry to fashion? Okay, so your first job was at Women's Wear Daily.
Yes.
As an accessories?
I was an accessories market editor.
Okay, so you said, like, at what point did you, like, realize you could work in fashion?
Well, I think I was very lucky that I grew up with parents that kind of supported me into kind of finding my way, doing what really made me happy. So that kind of allowed me the freedom to really explore. So I was always interested in fashion more from like an observation and art form. Like I love to see what people are wearing, like to look at magazines, kind of see how people put things together. You can see that's kind of how the layering came in. But I never really thought of it as a career. I knew I liked to be around like really creative people, really kind of people that I could be inspired from. But I was actually at a jazz club in Chicago with my father, and my father's, this is a little bit of a, trying to remember this, my father's friend's son's girlfriend had just finished an internship at Prada, and she was telling me about it. And up until that point, it had never dawned on me that people actually work and make money to a certain point. Like fashion can be a career, and so it kind of just all of a sudden clicked. Like this is something I really love, and this is something I'm passionate about. And so I thought I would try it. So I actually that was in the spring that summer. I was studying abroad in Rome, and when I got back, I interned with a stylist in Detroit, and then the next summer I did 4.5 years in college. So that next summer I got an internship at Details magazine, and then I was lucky enough to get a freelance position at Women's Wear Daily, and then hired on full time.
So how did that? So I guess you're from Detroit.
Yes. Well, yeah, Detroit area. Yeah, originally Detroit and then Detroit area. Yes.
Okay. And was her internship at Prada paid at that time?
I have no idea.
Okay, so
my internship was not paid. Fairchild was already part of Condé Nast.
Okay.
But
at Details or with the stylist?
Stylist definitely wasn't. I mean, stylist, that was kind of it wasn't a very structured internship. But at Details it was Condé Nast, so it was kind of a structured internship program, but it was for credit as opposed to a paid internship.
So how did you get the Details internship?
Really, it was interesting. I came to New York kind of knowing very few people in the fashion industry. So the reason why I got that position was because of the experience I got in Detroit.
Okay.
So that was kind of my biggest learning experience, is that like really no matter where you come from, there's a way to kind of get the experience you need. You just have to be kind of a little bit scrappy and a little bit creative, because I was hired as the fashion intern, I should say, not assistant, at Details, because I had shoot experience, and that's what they were looking for.
And did you just do a resume, or what was this? Did you go in, knock on their door?
Oh, at Details?
Yeah.
W was always one of my favorite magazines growing up, because I absolutely loved it. Bridget Foley, who I was lucky enough to eventually work for, she was kind of always one of my icons, people I looked up to. So I applied obviously to Condé Nast. I mean to Condé Nast proper, Elle and other things, but Fairchild was kind of always where I wanted to end up. So at that point, Fairchild had a program where you applied for Fairchild as a whole, and that all the different internship managers would sit around and you did like it was almost like speed dating with internships.
Yeah.
So you'd go.
That's great.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
But like you got through the slush pile, and like
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, today, right? It just seems like, how do you get through that slush pile?
I think it's a few things. I think, to be honest, it's changed a little bit then to now. I know I got a few intern interviews because my cover letters were so strong. I think, especially nowadays, as much as the digital age is amazing, people don't really write as much anymore. And so it's really hard for, I think, people to express their thoughts in words. They can tweet, they can show it through imagery, emoticons, but I think the written word is kind of losing steam a little bit, and people were actually told me they were surprised at the effort to which I put in my cover letter, which I was very surprised that people didn't do so. So I think it's really not being formulaic. I think it's really allowing, whether it's your cover letter, it's your resume, show who you are, because that's what's going to make you, because everybody's unique and everybody has something special about them, and that's kind of how you pull yourself, as you say, out of the slush. So it's really picking out kind of what makes you unique, and kind of everybody has a story behind them, even if they don't have maybe the Vogue internship or come from this kind of a family. There's some interesting experience or some sort of learning they've gained from how they grew up that kind of makes them special, and figuring out what it is and how to kind of apply that to what you want to do.
So what makes a strong cover letter, and what did you write in your cover letter?
I hate to age myself, but that was a few years ago. I do not remember what my cover letter says, but it's funny, through the years and as I've gone through different career changes, I have friends who are in the recruiting industry. What they say is, what people tell me now is, your cover letter should be very short. Your resume tells what you've done and kind of what you've accomplished, but your cover letter shouldn't go over that again. It should kind of tell the company or internship or whatever you're applying for, kind of what you can do for them, how your past experience benefits them, not kind of going over your life story as well. So kind of,
how you benefit.
Yeah, well, and it's just like an interesting way. So like, say for instance, what's a good example? So I was an accessories editor, which gave me an editorial trend experience, and then I worked at Bababar, where I was the fashion director. So I built a brand, and also I learned e-commerce business. So I think now having the skill set of being an editor and working for a fashion editorial, which is kind of very engaging, plus having the e-commerce brand experience, I can say that at one point I was looking at working for nonprofits. So what I would say is, while I may not have a nonprofit experience, I have a very unique experience in digital and media, so that I really know how to, and this is kind of what eventually segued into what I'm doing now. I know interesting ways to tell the story through images, through actual like written stories, and then also how to build a brand story, because that's what I did at Bababar. So it's like figuring out, especially with nonprofit and cause today, it's more important that they treat what they're doing as more of a brand and a cause, as opposed to just, a brand, I should say a brand and an actual like for-profit business.
So acknowledge what you don't have, and then say, this is what I do have.
Yeah, it's not even about acknowledging what you don't have, but showing how what you do have is actually better than what they may think you don't have. It's all about like spinning the story to suit you.
Yeah, spinning the story. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you go into music? You started out in music.
I always loved, even growing up, I did ballet along with sports and other things, but I used to love the arts. I used to love music. I used to love opera, everything. And I just, I really, I mean, I was a weird kid. I used to love all that stuff. I just really was interested in music and really was interested in kind of the fast-paced industry, and I loved kind of, as I said, the inspirational quality behind it. And Detroit had such a cool music scene. It was kind of so many different genres, but everybody was kind of really cool working together. It was really great kind of undercurrent. And so I kind of wanted to be involved in that. So my dad was a newspaper editor in Detroit, so he helped me get my first internship at Olympia Entertainment.
So how did you decide to leave all these different changes, going from Women's Wear Daily to Bauble Bar, which is a jewelry.
Yeah, it's an e-commerce jewelry brand, yes.
E-commerce jewelry brand, to now having your own company.
Well, I was at Women's Wear Daily for 7 years, and that's when I had the pleasure of working with Bridget Foley. I was there for 7 years because I was very green when I started there, so I definitely had a lot to learn about the industry and about, out there I was kind of really able to figure out who I was, kind of hone my eye and kind of really understand what I wanted to bring the industry and kind of how I saw fashion. And so after 7 years, as an amazing experience as it was, like working with designers, I was lucky enough to go to collections in Europe, all sorts of things like that. I felt like I got to a point where I wasn't growing anymore. And I mean, it's not that I wasn't contributing to Women's Wear Daily, but I didn't feel like I was really contributing to the whole in terms of like innovation anymore. And so I really kind of was looking at where I could go to kind of really to kind of grow my skill set and kind of really find out something new about myself. So it was interesting. I feel like as soon as you're really ready to make a change and you really kind of put it out there, I was in a car actually on the way to a fashion show with another editor, and I was telling her, she said, I heard you're looking to possibly leave. And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, I heard about these two girls who just started this jewelry e-commerce company. They're looking for somebody to kind of be their fashion point of view. So we had, at that point, it was just Amy and Danielle, the two founders of Bauble Bar, and one other girl that was working with her. So I had coffee with them at Nomad, was it? No, the Ace Hotel. I had a coffee with them at the Ace Hotel, and then a couple weeks later, they'd given me an offer letter, so I was the fourth employee at that point.
Did you take equity?
Yeah, I really love. They were really amazing girls, and I thought their model was really interesting. They had a strong board, but it was.
Or you cashed in?
No, Bauble Bar, I'm happy to say, even though I'm not there, they're still doing very well, doing very profitable. But yes, but the equity doesn't cash in until they sell.
Or IPO.
Yeah.
And then what made you take the jump from Bauble Bar to
Bauble Bar was amazing in itself because I was really able to build the brand and kind of figure out what the brand personality was and how to tell the story. After 4 years, it had grown into, I believe it was, I think it was last valued at $100 million company, which is amazing, but it became more, as a larger company, in the position I was in, I would have kind of been more removed from the day-to-day and kind of really kind of being on the ground floor of kind of building and getting my hands dirty, and that's kind of what I really enjoyed. I didn't want to be, I really loved what Bauble Bar was doing, but I didn't really want to just be in meetings all day and just managing people as opposed to kind of being involved in the creation myself. So I decided that it just wasn't the right fit for me anymore, and so I also just I took some time off to kind of really figure what I wanted to do next, because I wasn't sure. And then it was just through talking to many different people. I studied Kabbalah, so it was a little bit of kind of some spiritual teachings from that, and then I also read an amazing book from Simon Sinek called Start With Why, which is why I say brand needs to find its why. So it was kind of a lot of soul searching, internet searching, to kind of really figure out and craft kind of what it is I wanted to do and what it is I thought I could bring the world.
What do you want to bring into the world?
I mean, the reason why I came up with SF Story Lab is even when I'm kind of talking one-on-one with friends, I really like helping people tell their story, because I think everybody is so unique and so amazing, and it's just about really connecting to kind of what that is and kind of really believing in kind of your uniqueness and your amazingness and figuring out how to tell your story. And because by connecting to that is what's going to make a person truly happy and finding their calling. And for businesses, kind of telling an authentic story is what's going to connect them to their customers or their audiences, because otherwise they're going to just be kind of lost following what everybody else is doing.
Okay, so read the book, start with why.
Yeah, I love that. I recommend it to everybody.
Okay. I think this will be the last question. Which is, well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe we'll come back to you for the last question. But so you told me, I think you said that your dad also made this huge jump.
Yeah.
From one industry to another.
Yeah.
So tell us just really quickly.
Of course, my dad was a newspaper editor at the Detroit News for many, many years, and he was at other publications. But I want to say he was around 60. He saw kind of the writing on the wall for the newspaper business and kind of the lack of a progressive attitude. So he made the jump into running a medical research institute at the University of Michigan.
Okay.
So, and I mean, that's what I'm talking about, like figuring out, it has nothing to do with what you've done or what you haven't done. It's using kind of what your skills and your experience are to kind of apply to something new, because my dad obviously knew the media world very well, but he was also very good with people. He was very good with kind of engaging people, so he was able to, he's obviously didn't do any of the medical research itself, but he helped build a really amazing institute and help kind of tell its story, kind of develop it, things like that.
So how did he tell that story to make that leap? And did he apply?
That was actually through contacts of his. So I mean, it's really about putting that, for him, it was more about putting the energy out there and just kind of not being afraid to tell people you're looking for something new, but also being open to something that maybe it wasn't your exact plan, but listening, because even though it wasn't what you thought you wanted, it might be something even better.
Okay, that's great. That's amazing. Something even better.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Okay.
Yay. Okay.